So today is 2 February, and we're going to review what's required for your Module 1 solution in digital forensics. And we will also set the stage for your first assessment, which must be completed before the end of this week. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have not posted the solution yet. It will be 1.3. I'll revise the due dates associated with the rest of the timeline for Module 1 to reflect this week. So in case you were wondering about what was posted on the lead page for Module 1, have no fear. In the resources folder, I wanted to explain a couple of things. So there will be one short revision to the study guide that's already out there in the references folder. One of the things that is an essential component of, well, if Module 1 is all about forensics essentials, one of the concepts that we stressed in class was the idea that you have to be able to prove it, right? You have to prove it. So you're always going to be challenged at multiple points along the way. And if your work is going to stand scrutiny, you are going to have to be able to prove it, right? So you'll have to have references, you'll have to have credentials and certifications, you'll have to have documentation. You'll also need to stay current. So one of the things that we've implied along the way is that there's a lot of changes in case law. Here's an interesting tidbit that just came about. So TikTok faces legal action from a 12-year-old girl in England. This would be new precedent depending on the outcome of that case. You know, there may be new cybersecurity interests, specifically forensic interests, that tie to this case, because in order for this young lady to press her issue in the courts with TikTok, she's got to have some serious digital evidence. Wouldn't you agree? Credible digital evidence. Wouldn't you agree? Yes? No?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, in order for this to pass any court case in England, she would have to be able to assert some things about issues with TikTok. There are, can everyone still see my screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. Yes.
So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, forensics was real simple, right? So just on a humorous note, you know, we've always said that whenever you work a forensics case, you may be in a position where you need to, you may be in a position where you need to prove it, right? And so forensics used to be a very basic science, and it was more focused on criminal evidence, and there wasn't so much digital evidence. But I thought I would share this one cartoon just to make a point about forensics, right? Bowling pin forensics. This is a cartoon from Gary Larson. He's a favorite of mine. He's now retired, but for 20 years, for 2 decades, he posted a cartoon in most newspapers and magazines nationwide. And he was famous for just really abstract, really funny stuff. So it reads, "Struck from behind, all right. And from my first examination of the wound, I'd say this was done by some kind of heavy, blunt object. Gee, I wonder what heavy, blunt object within arm's reach might be suspect in a case like this, right? So unfortunately, digital forensics, you know, isn't quite as plain. This was a Mandiant report on APTs, Advanced Persistent Threats. These are live, interactive, malicious actors who are part of a Chinese army unit that are very well known. Mandiant was formerly a cybersecurity contractor that did a lot of work for the government, and they have since been purchased by a company called FireEye, and FireEye is a current, but there are updates on APTs every year. APTs are numbered by their not just their notoriety, but the severity of the skills they possess. So an advanced persistent threat is a live, interactive, malicious actor who's doing bad things. And based on the forensics that was collected in 2013, and that was 8 years ago, here's a report on APT number 1, the top evil hacker, like Dr. Evil from one of those movies. But anyway, the Dr. Evil of the cybersecurity hacking bad guy realm. And as you know, if this is an annual report, this is good information, and if this actor is still in circulation, that's okay. But whether or not he's number 1, whether or not there have been 8 other replacements, you know, the point I'm trying to make here is that, you know, people need to stay current, right? And current changes from season to season, month to month, week to week, day to day, hour to hour, in some cases, minute by minute. In any case, we wanted to kind of pull things together as we talk about the final concepts for Module 1. We told you that your own senses of observation, your own powers of observation. We did talk about different SSD types, yeah? So we said you got to keep up with technical stuff, new tech stuff. Here's a new notion for you. It turns out that UAVs, or aerial drones, are going to play a very large role in the rollout of 5G. What are we saying? The 5G cellular service that's rolling out to upgrade cellular service is going to include aerial drones that hover in a position to relay cellular signals. Why is this significant? Well, by the time they finish rolling this out, and this year, if you have to trace the origins of cellular signals as a part of a digital forensics court case, you're going to have some extra tech in the mix, right? So you're going to have to be aware that you know, there could be some of the infrastructure could include media access control, or MAC address, layer 2 identities and networking that involve drones, right? And the reliability of your forensic information may depend upon your grasp and your ability to prove that the infrastructure, no, the cell phone, the smartphone was in this location, and that was verified. Oh, really? So the defense is going to come along and say, yeah, but they were upgrading the 5G towers, and that was different technology, and that none of that data works, right? We're going to try to tell you that none of that data works. So keeping current is another principle of essential digital forensics. On the technical side of things, of course, standards change from year to year. So you can have court cases, you can have updates in standards for the given federal standards. All of this requires a tremendous investment of ongoing work, right? Of greatest concern is your ability to validate your own reliability and your own accuracy. And our solution, most of, well, the 5 points that are required for the solution relates to what's called establishing a baseline. And unfortunately, we do not have a forensic lab. We don't have separate laptops that are rigged for and configured for dedicated, solely dedicated for forensic purposes. So you're going to simulate some of the things that you do with a digital workstation, a forensic workstation, or a forensic lab using your own technology. I've posted a video that talks about optimizing your personal tech for VM use. Okay, and this is from last semester, and some of you may or may not be familiar with this video, but it is a short video, and it walks you through what I'm about to show you. I want you to be aware that it's in the resources folder, and it's the one that's listed on its own here. So the session recordings I'll be posting in the next couple of days, so you can reference any session recordings from the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But to finish your solution, what I'm going to share with you is basically covered part of the activity that you have to perform in order to work your solution is covered in this video. So when you're optimizing your personal tech for virtual machine use, what we're talking about is a forensic suite, right? And some of you may have components of this in place already. So let's talk about what's required, and then let's talk about what's additional credit. So can everyone see the screen again? Is this large enough?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we noted that one of the most important tools that you possess are your own powers of observation. And we mentioned that the Secret Service spends considerable amount of time training its agents to recognize counterfeit bills by studying not counterfeit bills. They don't study counterfeit bills. They study the real McCoy. They study legitimate bills, and they study the safety features, and that's where they put all of their time. You need to understand, as a forensic professional, what's normal on a system. Because when you first appear, whether it's an informal investigation or it's a formal, if it's a formal private or a public, it doesn't matter which level, all investigations, you need to understand what's counterfeit or what's off. That's your most important skill. And so we're going to invest some time in providing you with some manner of experience for that effect. You may have personal technology that's older. You may have a slightly older version of Windows 10 or the Mac operating system. In fact, you may have something that's very outdated, but even if you're working with older versions of the operating system and older versions of the software, you can still capture a baseline of your system performance and your system operating metrics based on, and what you want to do is simulate a like new condition. So this is the most important concept, I think. Why are you preparing your own personal technology? We're going to get your personal technology as close to new or uninfected or normal even though it may be years since you took it fresh out of the box. Now, what I'm going to do is ask each of you to respond by telling me how long you've had your laptop or your PC, and how long ago it was that you turned on the screen for that for your personal tech. And I'm going to start by, and I want you to know that I'm using a refurbished Lenovo laptop. So my laptop was basically overhauled. It was on lease for a business, actually a Fortune 500 company, and there's an outfit out in California. They sell $2,000 business grade Lenovo laptops for $600 after they've been out on lease for 2 or 3 years. It's kind of like the factory authorized lease to own program for things like Lexus and what's the other company? Infinity, right? These car companies, Mercedes, BMW, they all have these programs where you can basically lease to own. So my laptop is quite dated. It's about 10 years old. And I'm not going to ask you to provide the specifications for your laptop at this time, but I just want to get a feel for how long ago it was since you turned it on for the first time. I turned mine on for the first time almost 3 years ago at the UVI campus when the shipment of Lenovo's arrived from California after they'd been freshly renovated. So I turned up Windows 10 and it was almost 3 years ago. So I'm going to go down the roster now and just ask each of you if you would or could share with the class how long ago it's been since your personal laptop or PC showed its first out-of-the-box screen, OOBE, out-of-box experience is what it's called.
All right.
So Schneider, you're at the top of my list right now. How long has it been since you saw your out-of-box experience window when you first turned on your system?
Probably 2019.
2019.
No,
okay.
no, 2018 now, late 2018.
Okay. 2018, late 2018.
Yeah.
So basically, if we wanted to establish a baseline, you could have taken some screenshots before you loaded any software, before you got on the internet, before you started browsing all sorts of interesting stuff on the internet, before you started responding and clicking on links and emails, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'd also establish a baseline that would have to do with your network traffic. So we'd know what normal is for your firewall, yeah? So we're going to simulate that in this case. Aaron, how about you? How long has it been
I'd say about 4 or 5 years now.
4 or 5 years now. That's exceptional. I have a laptop that I purchased 6 years ago, and it's still going strong. It's another Lenovo, but it's a gaming laptop, and I used it to get through my advanced studies. Gaming laptops are great tools for hackers and for forensic specialists because of the graphics capabilities. So yeah, no, it just shows you're getting a lot of mileage out of your laptop. So 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, well, she's struggled busing now.
Yeah. I'm sorry, the last part of that was
struggling now.
Oh, it's struggling. Yes. Okay. So you'll find that the measures that we perform to prepare your personal technology are going to help a great deal with that. And the goal for this solution is to, in the least amount of time, simulate the baseline metrics and operating criteria for your forensic workstation, right? And we want you to have a relative feel for, how much CPU, if it's just sitting idle with an open screen, how much memory is taken up, how great is the disk activity and the network activity, that kind of thing. What we're going to find as we continue down the list is that some folks are going to want to take a different approach to this solution than to walk through the steps to optimize your personal technology. Aaron, you may be one of those. Because you're at the 4-year mark or longer, you may want to take a slightly different approach to how you set the stage before you capture your baseline metrics, okay? Now, once again, baseline metrics are like the authentic dollar bill, the authentic 20 or 50 or C note that a Secret Service person would study. If I look at mine and I look at my baseline performance, which is not where it should be right now. Can everyone see my screen yet?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see your screen.
You can see my screen, okay. So you see I have Zoom going, I have Explorer, I have Task Manager. If I have Chrome, I have 6 tabs. That's like having 6 separate web browser pages open. I've also opened Word and Paint. I have 7 apps going. When I look at my performance, I'm taking up 4 gigs of memory and about 20% of my CPU capacity. You see that there's about a 5% activity rate on my disk. My Wi-Fi is running at about 160 upstream send and 16 downstream receive. But considering I'm transmitting my screens to share with you right now, that's normal. I know that's normal because I've created a baseline of what my laptop does under normal conditions when it's safe, it's reliable, it's uninfected, right? I don't have any malware in my system that I know of. I've also got GPU metrics here, right? I can go a little further and look at whether or not each of the CPU cores is equally tasked, and I can get a little more granular with the resource monitor by going into my overview, CPU, memory, disk, and network functions, yes? So we want to know what an authentic dollar bill looks like. I'm saying that as a comparison. When you're a forensic specialist, when you get on a screen, if you're looking and it's, you know, the system's slow or it's behaving oddly, you want to be able to reference some things very quickly to help you assess what's going on, and then you make decisions from there about how to proceed further with your investigation. Okay, so we've heard from Schneider and Aaron. How about Akeem?
I had my laptop about 3 years now.
Okay, so 3 years ago, you had your first out-of-box experience, startup screens when you powered it on for the first time.
Yep.
Great. Amaya, how about you?
2017.
2017. Okay. So you're in the same territory as Aaron, where it's getting almost to be 4 years old, depending on when in 2017. If it was late in 2017, you'd be like 3 to 4 years, somewhere in that range. Okay. Deanna?
For me, it's been the summer of 2019. I got mine.
Okay. So relatively recently.
Yeah,
Less than 2 years. When we get to the summer of 2021, it will be 2 years.
exactly. Yep.
Tanisha?
Yeah, it's 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Tevin?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. So if you're 3+ years going on 4 years or more, you may want to do something that would likely take a lot less time, even though it seems like a lot worse effort. And here's what I'm talking about. Let's see if I can just show you the screen. So what am I saying? You can perform the steps in optimizing your personal technology based on the video and follow the steps and then perform your solution. So in order to complete your solution, you first have to optimize your personal technology. for a computer that's been recently loaded, I've wiped my system clean. In fact, I make it a habit of wiping my system out down to the bare metal. I get a separate boot partition that I run from a USB drive. And then I boot my system using the USB drive. And after I've saved what I want to keep off my hard drive, I wipe out all of the data on the disk down to the metal. I don't leave anything left. And then I install the operating system from scratch. Not too long ago, Windows 10 added the native capability, that's a built-in capability, to reset your operating system. So if you follow with me right now, it's probably good to follow along. If you go into Update and Security, it's a recovery option. And what you're going to select is the recovery option. And you're probably saying, well, wait a minute. I don't want to recover my PC. But once you hit recovery, you'll notice the very top option is reset this PC, right? So what am I saying? There's built-in installation media embedded in your Windows 10 software. And so it says here, learn how to start fresh with a clean installation of Windows. That's the hardcore bare metal option. But if you go to reset this PC, there are two options that are presented to you. And I'm saying that this would be quicker and easier for you to perform if you had a laptop or a PC that's been in play for more than 3 years, going on 4 years, and so on. Optimizing your personal technology, if you haven't done some of the steps that I'm going to show you in a minute for optimizing personal technology, you're going to find that it can take a day or longer to perform any one of the 4 or 5 steps. It takes an hour or two to perform this step. So it's much more time efficient. I'll let you decide what you want to do. But I will tell you that if reliability of your workstation has to be proven in any court case, you want to be able to say that you start with a clean slate, bare metal, air-gapped system that's not on the internet, and you're using media to install the operating system that's been validated with a hash. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Excuse me?
Yes.
So when you say apps, did you mean like programs you download too? Like we remove Google Chrome? Would it remove Steam? Would it remove
Yes.
my
So
remove all that?
yes. So to answer your question, the reset option for this PC, if you say keep my files, it'll leave the software, it'll leave the settings. Oh, I'm sorry. No, keep my files. It'll remove the apps. It'll remove the settings, so it'll remove all your software, but it will keep your personal files. So inside your user folder, where you have, and right now I'm logged in owner, I can go inside my owner user profile. Most of my data inside the owner user profile will be conserved. But the data, I mean, the applications that are loaded inside, typically inside program files or program files x86, which is an older 32-bit. So this is 64-bit apps. These are 32-bit apps, right? Older apps. Those will be wiped. If there are separate directories that were set up for applications, those will be wiped as well. So it's important to understand what those two options do. If you have the data you want to keep, your email, any pictures, any papers and assignments, any source code that you wrote for coding projects, you know, if you basically have what you need on a separate thumb drive, it's always cleaner and it works better to just remove everything. Now that seems kind of radical, but when you finish this process, what it's going to do is bring you to a out-of-box experience screen like it's brand new. And then the steps that you take to prepare your personal technology to document your baseline, right? Your performance baseline for a Windows 10 machine with so many cores and so many gigs of RAM. It's gonna, you know, if we load and run Google Chrome, it's gonna take up so many CPU cycles and so many, so much bandwidth on the network. If instead I load up Zoom while I'm doing Zoom, it's gonna take up so much CPU cycles and so much network bandwidth. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about?
I have a question.
Yes.
Now, say, because my laptop, yes, I opened it up 2017, summer of 2017, and from since then it was working fine. But last year, in the spring semester, my old hard drive decided to conk out on me, so I decided to get a new SSD.
Mm-hmm.
Do I still need to follow the steps and, you know?
Yes, you're going to perform, the short answer is you're going to perform the steps to optimize your personal technology, but you wouldn't have to worry so much about resetting your PC because it's been that long. Okay? So you're still, everyone is going to at least at a minimum perform the steps for optimizing your personal technology. This screen here. Everyone must perform this. But if you have an older system that hasn't been updated in a while, it may be easier to do this. Now, the other thing that you can use to decide is to ask yourself what version of the operating system you actually have. If you go to the Home option off of your Start menu and go to Settings, and then select Home, and then select System, and then hit About. If you scroll down, you are up to date if you have a Windows 10 edition that is 20 Hotel 2. The OS build is 19.042.746. If you don't have 19.042, you'll need to load the latest version of Windows 10, which replaces the previous kernel. It is an entire upgrade of the operating system. And that takes a long time. That's a part of optimizing your personal technology. And depending on the speed of your internet connection, basically it can run, you know, you can update your Windows 10 to the latest version of Windows in an hour to 90 minutes. So you do something else for an hour to 90 minutes and you come back and it's done, right? Does anyone have a Mac? Is anyone working with a Mac? Do we have any Mac users? Is everybody with me still?
Yeah, I don't use Mac. I use Windows.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Okay. I think Milan might be the only one with a Mac. So in his case, he's going to do some different things. So this is what you do. This is what you do if you need to start from scratch. Now, if you don't have a decent Windows 10 installation to remove everything and rebuild natively, you can use this option and it'll download a clean copy of Windows 10 from the internet. It'll stage some extra files on your system. Then you can go from there. Okay? Any questions before we continue?
None for me.
Okay, so I'm going to pause for just a second, and then I'm going to be back on screen. I just need a second to, take care of something real quick, and then we'll spend the last half hour to talk about how you complete the solution, okay? So everybody please stand by. It's a good time to take a quick pause, stretch your legs, that kind of thing. Good morning, Milan. We'll be right back.
Morning.
Is everyone back with us? Should we
I'm here.
okay.
I am here, but I don't know for how long because my connection just said it's unstable.
Right, I understand. Well, just rejoin if it drops, but essentially there are a couple of steps that you're going to want to perform. And as I stated before, the one reference you're going to want to follow here is optimizing your personal tech. And one of the things that's good to do before you actually get started here, I just want to see if I mention this in here. Okay, so in order to prepare for your virtual machine download, just to recap quickly. All right, so the optimizing your personal tech was basically performed in another class for a different purpose, but it serves the same purpose here. And there's supposed to be an option for people to go and click into YouTube so we can, oh, there it is. There's the YouTube link. So what I want to do is, okay, so in order to prepare for your virtual machine download, just to recap quickly, in a Mac computer, you're going to download all of the operating system updates and install them, and any application updates. But Apple makes it easy for Mac users. All you have to do is uninstall, drag an app that you don't use to the trash can and empty your trash can, or install some trivial free app from the App Store onto your Mac. And as soon as you load or unload an application from your Mac, all the magic wheels start spinning, and you want to leave it powered on and you want to leave it plugged in. So you see there's 40 minutes of explanation here. And essentially, I'm going to hit a fast forward button here. And yes, it talks about how to do the same process on a Mac. Windows Updates is painfully slow. If a couple of things play out on your system, one is you have software you really don't know what it's there for. And everybody can see my screen, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I went into Control Panel, but basically if I go to the Start menu and start typing Control, and then I open up Control Panel, before you run updates, and before you update your software, what you really should do is go into Programs and Features. And you'll notice here that I have an older version of Kindle, but if I uninstall it, it'll uninstall the newer version. That's just stupidity on Kindle's part. I use Chrome Remote Desktop quite a bit. I know the applications that belong on my system. But when I run Windows Update, when it sees something like this from Microsoft, it's going to load a whole series of updates for .NET, because I at one time had Visual Studio loaded, right? I have a version of Visual Studio loaded, and some of these redistributables are also from other development environments, so they're not just from Visual Studio. As a general rule, it's good to look at the install date of something you know is associated with some of this, and you'll see it was installed on February 7th of 2019. So each of these Visual C++ redistributables, look at the date on there, 2008. Those things are going to take and add quite a bit of time to a Windows update. Needless. I don't know what they're there for now. They could be associated with the Visual Studio and they were updated afterwards. But one of the things you want to do to lighten the load is to remove anything you don't use anymore. We often put a lot of extra stuff in there. You're going to see things in there that you don't know what it's there for. I'm going to pretend that I don't know why the SD card formatter is on my system. Now, maybe I was doing a project. I can't remember why. Anything and everything that you can unload that you're sure you don't need, you're better off unloading it. This is an older version of Visual Studio. If I uninstall it, then what will happen is that that's a lot less that Microsoft is ever going to worry about updating. Okay, so I'm gonna basically do this, and I'm gonna thin out my list for anything that is strange, anything I don't recognize, anything I don't need. And I'm gonna manually do that before I go through the trouble of running Windows Update. And that's gonna help Windows Update move a lot faster. Now, so you want to do this before you run update. So you're going to do some spring cleaning, and that's going to help the rest of the process go a lot faster. Now, you can ignore this, and I mean, you can basically take a very conservative approach and go, well, I don't know what that is, but I want to keep it. And it may add, 8 extra hours. And I'm not joking. It can add 8 extra hours of downloads to your system update. If you are in the habit of clicking wait till later when update prompts, hey, there's new updates, and you never update, it could take a long time. Even if your laptop is 2 years old and you have not been in the habit of accepting updates, it can take a painfully long period of time to run Windows Update. But if you don't run in Windows Update, what's going to happen is that you cannot vouch for the reliability and integrity of your system. Put another way, you will perform forensic activities in my course, and if I pretend I'm a court, if I'm an officer of the court later in this semester, I'm going to eat your lunch and your breakfast. I'll tap dance on your pride in front of an audience, metaphorically speaking. I wouldn't do this in front of the class, but on the sideline, when I receive one of your submissions, I'm going to say, oh man, this is just so green, as in inexperienced, right? We went over this earlier in the semester. You don't want people shooting your case full of holes because you didn't do the necessary stuff to show that you can't touch this. Has everybody ever heard the song from MC Hammer? You can't touch this. I
think everyone here has.
Yeah. Don't you want to be able to play that song whenever anybody does anything to try to shoot holes in your credibility? Yeah. And this is where the process starts. Now, my list ran off the screen when we started, but it doesn't now. I know everything that's on here, and it's got a use, and it's a current use, okay? So when I run updates, what's going to happen is that, so I go back to home, I do updates and security, going to run Windows updates. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do updates just yet. So let's pretend, I'm going to go back to this for just a moment. And this is actually good information for some of the other classes we're talking about too. So I'm going to open up this screen one more time just so you can see it again. Let's pretend that I deleted something I wasn't familiar with, like the SD card formatter. I don't know where I got it. I was working on something. I think I know, but I can't be sure. Are you with me? Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's another thing you want to do, because part of establishing your baseline of proper, secure, stable, uninfected forensic workstation performance is your network activity, right? They have really powerful types of malware that are called kernel level exploits, and they're often installed when other applications are loaded. It's a concept called Trojan horse. You needed an SD card formatter. You got more than you bargained for. Oh, there's a screen, there's a GUI about how to format an SD card. But behind the scenes, it's unpacking something else. And that malware, it's called a Trojan horse, will load into your kernel. And long after this is gone, that Trojan horse is still in your kernel. So what you want to do is you want to make it harder for it to communicate to the mothership to reinfect your system. What am I saying? I'm saying that a Trojan horse that embeds itself in the kernel of your operating system is almost undetectable. But if you removed anything in your list of software, it's possible that something hitched a ride. And one of the best things you can do to close the door and lock it, so you just don't, you know, oh, I started working on my PC, but it's still slow. Yeah, that's because you didn't close the door. You took stuff off and it snuck right back on while you were running updates. The other stuff was slipping back in. So after you unload your software, go into Control Panel Home, go into Firewall, Defender Firewall. You can also access this, I believe, through the security settings. If you go this way, let's look at it both ways, okay? We'll look at Home. We'll look at security. I was just in there. I don't know why I turned away from there. We'll go into Windows Security. I want you to see both approaches. So there's virus and threat protection, right? How many of you have actually run a virus scan on your own PC?
Does
I have.
Norton count?
Yeah.
So here's firewall and network protection, right? I've clicked on firewall and network protection. It talks about domain network, private network, and public network. That's another story for another day, but just remember you always want to select, if you have a choice, when you connect to a network, it's going to say, hey, this is a private network, or hey, do you want other devices to discover your machine? You want to say no. You want to always, that's going to engage the public network, which is actually more private than the private network. Let me say that again. As a forensic professional, please don't confuse the stupid term, and I'm saying that as a frustrated forensic professional, 20 years, and an IT professional. Microsoft needs to work on their terms and their labels. The private network firewall is not more private. It assumes that you're on a private network, like at your house, and nobody else is around, so it's more relaxed. It's actually less private than the public network in terms of firewall protection. Go figure. I would love to meet the guy who came up with the way to label this stuff in a dark alley after hours, because this causes more problems. People answer that question, hey, do you want other people to discover your, you know, you've connected to a network. Do you want other people to discover your system? You should always answer no. That's going to turn on the public network profile, which is the most restrictive, and that's what you want. Now, if I have a private network connection at home, I want to convert it to a public network connection. One thing I also want to do is this option right here, and you see it present on both pages. If you go old school through Control Panel, or you use the new Windows security settings, restore firewalls to default. We just went through all that trouble to remove software. But what you'll find if you go into your firewall right now and you look at inbound rules, you're going to see stuff that has to do with junk you have removed previously. Why do I care? I'm not using Cortana. I disabled that feature. Why is that rule in place? Okay. Why do I need, if I'm using Dolby sound technology for my sound card on my laptop, why does that have to communicate with the internet, right? There's all these, the point is those are installed when software is installed or when features are enabled. You want to reset. The easiest way to do this is to go in there. I don't use mail-in calendar off the start menu. There was a mail-in calendar. I uninstalled it. I don't use the mail-in calendar off of my start menu. But if I don't do that, then it stays loaded and mail-in calendar keeps a network channel open just in case I want to use mail-in calendar. That's stupid. So I can delete this rule. But the best way to handle this is basically to hit the reset, okay? So it's a good idea to go in there. Oh, I used to play around with connecting my laptop to my smart TV. So it's called Wi-Fi Direct, right? Or WiDi in some cases. So it's, you know, I set up WiDi so I could beam my screen to the smart TV. Maybe you've done something like this to impress your friends. Oh, here's one, your phone. I once connected my phone. Now there's a firewall rule in there. I don't want all that extra junk. It's bad. I'm going to click Restore Defaults. Now, if I click Restore Defaults and it happens to chop off our Zoom connection, just have a good laugh with me and then stand by and I'll rejoin. But I'm going to go ahead and do this. Whether I click here or I click here, it's going to ask, do I really want to do this? I'm going to say, yeah, I want to do this. So part of your baseline after you uninstall apps to make Windows Update run faster and smoother and cleaner is to go into your networking and hit Restore Firewalls to default, because stuff sneaks in. Any questions so far?
I do have a lot of work to do.
Well, most people have lots of stuff on their laptop. They've never done spring cleaning. If you own your laptop, even for 18 months to 2 years, you've never done updates, you've never done spring cleaning, you might want to consider the reset option because it's still just quick. You get what you want to save and then just reset. And it's really much more time efficient. I didn't push that in the past. I got really grumpy students last season because they're like, yeah, my system runs a lot faster now, but dang, it took 2.5 days. Well, but you've been working on that thing for 4 years and never did anything to optimize it, right? So if you want it to behave like new, you can either reset the thing so it is new, or you can do it manually by uninstalling unused apps, then working the updates. Now, here's the fun part that I find most annoying. After you finish updating,
Mr. Kenta, got
yes,
one more question.
yes.
Do you have an easy way to like update all your drives at one time?
No, there is no easy way to update all your drives. The short answer is, if you follow the steps in the YouTube app that I'm showing you, optimizing your personal tech, and you follow the steps, then that will pretty much do the job.
Okay.
So you know right here that you have a certain number of programs and features. After I update Windows, if I get to the point where I can't run updates anymore, because everybody here knows that after you update, you should check updates again because there are updates to the updates. Oh, and did you know there are updates to the updates to the updates? So you keep checking until it says what? There are no more updates. Yes? Everyone knows what I'm talking about? But I have a question for you. If you use Java, when was the last time you updated Java? Or if you have Office, when was the last time you updated Office? How do you do that? Well, in some cases, you have to go into each of the apps, and there's an update option. Like in Adobe, you basically open Adobe Acrobat Reader, and there's an option under Help to check for updates. Many times it'll just return nothing. No updates available. Okay, let's try Office. I'm going to open up one of my Office apps, a Word document. Oh, I already have one open. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Options. And I'm going to go to Advanced. No. Account. I'm not going to go to Options. I'm going to go to Account. Update Options. Update now. You may have installed Office 365 last season on your laptop or PC. I got news for you. There's a new version of Microsoft Office. So, which is easier, checking manually all of the applications or resetting your PC and then just loading a fresh copy? I don't know. It's up to you. It depends on how much stuff you have on your system. What you want to do is take out enough trash and update all of your apps after. Now, when you update your apps, if any of those are Microsoft, it also does the unholy business of changing some of the stuff on your Windows operating system, which means after you update all your apps, what should you do just to be sure nothing else changed on your system? You should check for updates. After you do all that, just check for updates to see if anything else changed. And if you have a reduced list of applications, you have extra resources that are not loaded on your system you no longer need. Look at this. Can everybody see Microsoft Visual C++ 2008 Service Pack? Didn't I delete that? Hello? Didn't I delete that?
Yeah, you uninstalled it.
Yeah.
You're going to see in the video, I tell you that between steps, you should reboot. If I had restarted my system, the Visual C++ 2008 would no longer be there, and it would simply drop that, and I'd never see it, right? I'd never see this business right here. But if you wanted proof that unnecessary things load down your system, even for updates, there it is. And see, it's downloading 20%. I don't know if it's going to clear. It might be looking for the original redistributable package now. Maybe it's just going to load a whole new one. I don't know. But in the video, I tell you, in between steps, reboot. Let's talk about the final steps for preparing your personal technology. Oh, I just loaded this Office 365 in December. And now it's loading updates to the version. It's going to keep working in the background, and that's helpful, right? I need to go on and tell you about the rest of the steps. So if I go into Control Panel, everybody can see? Yes?
Yep.
Inside Administrative Tools, there's two options, one called Disk Cleanup and Disk Defragment. You're going to probably want to put this on your Start menu. Pin to Start. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't created a second account on your system that's not administrative for use with web and email access, you're probably going to want to do that too, because a good defense attorney is going to say, what are you doing using an administrative account all the time on your forensic workstation? That's when you laugh at him and say, it's air-gapped, it's not connected to the internet, nobody's going to take advantage of my administrative login while I'm disconnected from the internet. It's another story for another time. All right, so we go into our administrative tools. This option here in Control Panel, Administrative Tools, Disk Cleanup. I usually right-click this and pin it to the Start menu. You always want to right-click it when you run it and run as administrator. Now, this is really annoying. This app is really annoying. And some of you that are using Windows 10 machines are going to think, now I know why it's good to spend a little more money on a Mac after you're all over and done with.
No, see me. Can you show us where you found the disk cleanup again?
It's inside control panel. You may see control panel where it has categories like this. You hit the categories option and select large icons. You go into administrative tools, and it's one of the administrative tools. Okay?
All right.
Okay. And I'm recording this session, so
Got it.
all right. So here's disk cleanup. Half the time you open up disk cleanup, the more options tab is not showing. Let me say that again. If you're doing this for the first time, there's a secret tab called more options that isn't around. And you have to click the option that presents down here. I show you this in the video, but basically I want you to know that you need to check all the boxes, right? And if more options is not showing, you need to click the additional option that presents down here. It's not showing here. That's going to give you the more options tab. Once you have the more options tab, you're going to take the system restore and shadow copies option, and you're going to hit clean up. It's going to act like something's wrong. Are you sure you want to delete all the most recent restore points? Because you might not need the older ones, but then you can't go back. And when you do some research, it's going to sound scary and hairy. Don't worry about that. Just say delete. For good measure, I always click it again. Yeah, I really meant it. Then I go back to disk cleanup and make sure all of my checkboxes are checked. Now, usually you'll get so many megabytes or so many gigabytes here. It is not uncommon once somebody clicks clean up and delete on the secret tab, more options, to go back to disk cleanup and see suddenly that there's 35 or 40 gigs of space that you're going to recover. I've seen as much as 60 gigabytes of disk space recovered. You're going to click OK. It's going to delete the files. And then after it's finished deleting, by the way, you don't want a screensaver on your laptop active. You don't want your laptop active and idling while disk cleanup is happening. If your screensaver kicks into gear while it's cleaning up, it's going to start storing temporary files as it goes into screensaver mode and it's showing something pretty on the screen. If you're doing the defrag later, which is the cleanup part, let me show you that quickly. Where are we?
So, quick question. So, how do you know he's only deleting unnecessary files?
That's a great question. You can see which files are being deleted from the checklist. You can review the checklist of items, and if you don't agree with something that's in the checklist, you can uncheck it. But everything that's listed there, you don't need. And
Once upon a time, I had an antivirus on my tablet, and it like erased all my videos on it. And it says unnecessary files. That happened to me once.
yeah, that would not be a Microsoft tool. That would be some other kind of antivirus. Yeah.
Yeah, just making sure.
And if it was a Microsoft antivirus and it removed your videos, it could be that your videos were infected with a virus. That's also a possibility. I'm just saying. So depending on where you got them. All right, so in administrative tools, there's a second option, and it's called Defrag Optimized Drives. Usually you don't have anything else open. So I wouldn't be running Zoom. I wouldn't be running screen shares. I wouldn't be browsing the web. I wouldn't have Paint open. None of this would be open. The only thing that's running is disk cleanup. Once disk cleanup is finished, I select and right click, run as administrator, the disk cleanup and optimize. It's called defragment and optimize drives. That's what it's called. Run as administrator. It's going to ask me, it may say it's never been defragmented, or it may say that it's been defragmented last month or a few days ago. but you're going to select the C drive and you're going to hit optimize. I'm going to use the system partition just to show you how fast it runs. On a solid state drive, this process doesn't take very long at all. On a regular hard disk that is not solid state, if you have never optimized your C drive and you have a traditional hard disk, the first time you optimize it, you want to leave your laptop plugged in and let it run overnight, because it will take 8-10 hours to defragment. Okay? Any questions?
Give me a second. Defragment. So I'm gonna pin that to my taskbar.
It's in the video. You're gonna right click this and then pin to the taskbar. Well, pin to start, or send to your desktop. If you
Is
pin,
it in the other video too?
yeah,
Or this video?
it's in the video that I have online. So, what are you going to? There's a couple of extra steps that you do for optimizing personal technology, and there's one in particular that will double the performance of your laptop or PC. It's called adjusting the swap file space. That's an advanced topic, but it's in the video, and I'm going to encourage you, in the interest of time, to watch the rest of the video. Are there any questions before I briefly introduce what it is you're going to capture for your solution? I'm not hearing any questions. Okay. So what is it you're going to capture? You're going to perform some calculations. I'll explain that. That'll be a part of what you do. And basically, the whole idea is that you're a digital forensics specialist, and you're going to have a live system and a system of interest. So basically, your own laptop is going to serve as let me rephrase that. When you run across another Windows machine, if it has similar hardware capabilities, it's going to be the target system or system of interest, and you're going to perform the same quick analysis on that system and compare it to your own. I'm going to update this to show Windows 10 version. It's no longer 1909. I showed you it's 2.0 Hotel 2 is installed, right? What you're going to do is take a screenshot showing that all the updates on your system have been performed, right? And then you're going to capture the operating levels without applications loaded. So nothing's going to be loaded down here on your taskbar. And you're going to open up Task Manager, and you're going to select CPU, and you're going to leave it for a second, and then you're going to press Alt Print Screen, and I'm going to see, oh, you have 2 cores. It's hyper-threading, so there's 4 logical processors. The CPU is capable of running 1.9 gigahertz. It's an i5. That's important detail because when I'm comparing performance statistics for no applications running no load, I want to know what kind of processor, what's its speed. If I have an AMD processor with 8 cores and 16 logical processors, it's a Threadripper, and it runs at 3.8 gigahertz, then I can't use this. I cannot use this as a baseline for that machine. But this is a common laptop, and you'd be shocked at how many laptops have more than 1 core and they run around 2 gigahertz. And I want to know what the average load is. If I don't have any applications loaded, if I'm not streaming YouTube video, if I'm not uploading Zoom screen shares live, then my CPU isn't working very hard. My memory isn't being used up, my disk space isn't swapping out, and my upstream traffic is relatively low. So the important point is that you're going to take a screenshot of your CPU activity with nothing loaded. Then you're going to do the same thing for memory. Then you're going to do the same thing for disk. Then you're going to do the same thing for the network connection, upstream and downstream, so that I can see literally specifics about your network address, send and receive, and all that. That's what you're going to do. Those are the screen captures that you're going to submit at a minimum after you conduct your optimization. Now, none of this counts if you don't do the first part. If you don't do the preparing my personal technology and prove that you have a clean, stable, updated, legal, by the way, you can't run Windows updates if you don't have a legal copy of Windows. And if you have that problem, I want you to contact me and we'll work something out that you can use the virtual machine to conduct the steps of this activity, okay? So, I mean, we won't jam you up, but sometimes people buy laptops from someone and they swear it's all legit, and then they find out, no, it's got bootleg operating systems on it. Somebody loaded a new version of Windows on an old laptop and sold it as a new laptop. Happens all the time. So in any case, I'm going to update the specifics here, but after you show that all of your optimization has been performed in section 1, then you have the details that you need right here for the task manager, CPU, memory, disk, and network. There's a third one you're going to do, MAC identities, network addresses, and firewall rules. I'm going to go ahead and capture another video on this. I may substitute GRC shields up for some of this because it's graphical and it's color coded and it's really cool and it reveals additional things on top of that. I want you to show me your local domain and third-party user profiles. We've been in this folder right here in users. I want this screen because what I see here is that there's an owner account, a T. Christian Kentop account, but what the heck is this, right? If you have an extra user profile in there that doesn't match your users, if I go in here and I look for users and accounts, and then I look at, there's my account, and then here's another user, T. Christian, what is going on with that other one? That's another part of your baseline. You should have the same number of user profiles in here that show when you reference here. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? If you can't match here, what shows here, then your forensic laptop has inherited a hitchhiker, and it's time to wipe the slate clean and get a fresh system going, right? So this is part of your validation process. Does everybody understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing we're going to do. Hard disk partitions and cloud drives. So on this last piece, what we want to know is whether or not OneDrive shows up in your File Explorer. This is Windows File Explorer. You access this when you click here. And what we want to know is whether or not there are extra disks that are showing. OneDrive is a cloud-based disk. And if it's turned on, it'll show up in your list. We want to know if OneDrive is part of your baseline. We also want to know whether or not there are other partitions on your system. We go into disk management. I showed you something about this the other day, didn't I? You right-click this PC, go into manage, Go into disk management. You need to include this screenshot, okay? So you're going to show this with this and your screenshot. That's your baseline. We know that we have 750 megs for a system partition. It doesn't have a drive letter. It's a separate area of your physical disk. It's a logical drive, and it's inaccessible to the average user. If the size changes, that means hackers have been in there as a part of your baseline. You want to know what your baseline is. System partition is 750 megs. How about the recovery partition, 802 megs? It's not accessible to the average user, but what happens if the size changes? You know something's up because your baseline has changed. You basically want to get a good read on what a laptop with 240 to 320 gigs with a multi-core processor with 8 to 16 gigs of RAM is going to look like in terms of a baseline. When something's off, you'll be looking at it and go, why is there 27 gigs of space in the healthy recovery partition? No Windows installation includes 27 gigs for the hidden health recovery partition. That's not a normal baseline. So I know there's a lot of detail that we've covered. I will supplement the optimizing your personal technology video with a step-by-step for your solution. And when I post the solution on Blackboard, the rest of the information you'll need for that submission will be in there. Are there any questions about the required part of your solution? And yes, it is a lot of work, but if you do it right, then the rest of the season goes much more smoothly and you don't spend as much time. So please don't freak.
No question.
Yeah, please don't freak and run from the room because, you know, oh my gosh, every solution is going to be like this. It's going to be terrible. In an ideal world, we'd have a computer lab. I could reset the systems and you'd walk in and we'd work with the stuff in the computer lab. And we'd never have to do any of this. We could do our baseline activity without having to do the extra steps. To simulate a brand new system where you capture the baseline so you know what a brand new system looks like. Then after it's been infected, it's like, oh, that's a fake $20 bill. I can see it right here.
I think I could do this with my dad's laptop, to be honest.
Well, if your dad is willing and he's okay with you making some of the changes, then yeah, that would be a great thing to do.
I can do it from my home desktop.
If you run into a snag,
I could probably fully reset my dad's laptop easy. Doesn't really use it that much.
you can reach out to me if you run into problems, if something crashes or something gets weird. It could mean that you have an uninvited guest on your system, and we can work through that together, okay? Once again, the network portion of this assignment for the solution, I might change it up to do GRC shields up, and it'll be in a separate video if I do that. Any questions about the details we've covered for the baseline, capturing a baseline, right? You're optimizing your personal technology, and you're capturing the baseline of your system, which is used to detect unusual changes. It's the only thing you can do to detect a kernel level exploit. When malware embeds in the kernel of the operating system, it fakes the screens, it substitutes information. You try to see how your firewall's doing and it says, oh, the firewall is great, but the fans are always blowing. Your system is always hot. Your CPU is overheating. Everything is slow as molasses in January. And you know in your heart that something is, the hard disk light is always flashing. You look on Task Manager and it shows disk activity of 7%. But when you look at the little blinky light on your laptop or your desktop, it's pegged solid on all the time, like it's going crazy. It'll show that there's no disk activity, but the disk light on your panel is going bonkers. That's how you know. It's the only way you know. And the one thing you don't want is to be embarrassed because somebody had a malware infection and it tainted the data, and here you are drawing conclusions about what they did or didn't do, and it's not that at all. Their junk is tainted, right? First rule of business. All right. I'm going to go ahead. I need all of you to clear the room if you don't mind. We'll stop recording. I have a 10:30 appointment with a student for advisement.